So, welcome everyone to the very first, the inaugural Police Accountability Commission meeting here in Newcastle. I am incredibly excited for this and very humble for the interest in this, in this commission. So this is going to be a very informal night. I was just telling our chairperson, Consuelo Petty, that I'm going to kind of take the lead tonight just to kind of lay some background as to how we got to where we got. Review a few things after some introductions. But then after that, this is your show. So, and I'm excited to get to that point. But what I thought we could do at first, if we're comfortable doing this, is we are short 3 members. So I can explain to you, one may show up a little bit late, but one is the pastor for the Seeds of Greatness. And the other is going to be a student council member from William Penn High School. So we thought it was important to bring somebody from the school district in and a student. So they're working on identifying who that is. I was hoping maybe one of the administrators was here tonight, but we're going to record this. We could share it with them. So they're not, hopefully they're not, too far behind when we kick things off the next meeting. I think the only business really informally tonight might be establishing schedules. I know, everybody's got a busy schedule, so this is another reason why we're so appreciative. We know it's going to be hard, but I imagine as a group we could figure out what works best. And then we can kind of factor in what kind of effect that's going to have on city business too, because there are a lot of committees. I was excited to use this room. But I'm not so sure it's the best platform. So I think we're going to take a look at maybe trying to get the senior center where the council meetings are. We can look for some funding to pay for that out of the police department's budget if we have to, or maybe some grant funding. But I think it's better. I think they've got a nice they've got a better setup with the AV kind of stuff. So unfortunately tonight, my relatively new 75-inch TV broke. So we're going back to the 80s here. So I apologize for the picture, but anyway, so that's it in a nutshell. You have bylaws in front of you. At some point, we'll do a brief overview, and then we're gonna let you folks review them on your own. And then if you have some input, we're gonna try to keep the structure pretty much the way it is. But if you have anything you think that needs to be added, that we can do. We will. We'd like to get that back before we send it to our solicitor to have a final approval. So we want to make sure that we're following all the rules. And I'll get to this when we talk about the legislation that led to this enactment. But part of the legislation requires that we follow state committee rules. So that's where we are. What I'd like to do and start with, we'll start here. I'd like to do some introductions. I'd like to as much background as you'd like to give. Obviously a name. We're going to create a list, and then obviously at some point our website will have this commission will have its own tab with committee members. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves, whatever background you want to share, what interest you had in joining this commission, and then take it from there.
So I'm Rodney Pratt. I live at 402 Chestnut Street, right there in the historic district. And I've been in town since 2015. I've had my business in town since 2012. I'm the owner of the Opera House Arts and Antiques and Rodney Pratt Framing and Gallery inside the Opera House on Delaware Street. And I piqued interest in helping with this accountability committee because I wanted to be continue my efforts in being part of the city. I'm also on the Board of Elections, and I know a lot of people in town, and I thought it would be kind of nice to learn more about more people. And I believe our town has about 5,500 to 5,700 residents and then the businesses and stuff like that. I think that's it for right now.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara Stoner. I am a native of Delaware, and I've been in the city of Newcastle since 2016. I currently work at Delaware State University as an assistant vice president over auxiliary contracts. I used to do risk management as well. I'm also the university secretary to the board of trustees. Also a member of the executive team for the Association of Governing Boards in Washington, D.C. A little bit more background on me. I did graduate from WVU in Morgantown, West Virginia, with a degree in poli-sci and legal studies. I also got my paralegal certificate from Widener. I also spent over 20 years as a corporate bankruptcy paralegal. See what else? I'm on the Planning Commission board currently, and also on a couple of other committees that bring value, I feel, to this particular committee. I'm very honored to be here today. I'm very honored to be a part, and I'm hoping that I can contribute to the success of this committee.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angel Ramos. I live at 114 Stuyvesant Avenue, right here in Van Dyke Village. I've been a resident here of Newcastle for now 22 years. I'm a HVAC service installation technician. Pretty much anything to deal with HVAC and heating and air is what I've done. I'm a member of the Board of Adjustments Committee here in Newcastle. I gave it a run to run for mayor a few years, seems a long time ago now, but last year, which was a good experience. It was my first experience in, I guess, for lack of better words, the political realm. I've always been interested in the city and giving my support to whatever the city needs. And I'm hoping that being part of this committee, I could, help out and do what I can to give my opinions to this committee.
Great. And look at it positively. Had you won that election, you would be on this board. So.
So Petty. My father is actually was Eugene Petty. This program is a dream of his. He actually talked often about establishing some type of committee. He was really big on community service in the city of Newcastle. He used to walk the streets regularly and make sure he had connections with all the residents. So this was a really big, will be a really big dream come true for him. So my mom is over the moon that Chief McCabe has decided to name this after him. I am actually, obviously a born resident for the city of Newcastle, born and raised in Buttonwood. I currently work for the federal government, where I do oversight for all financial institutions, about 2,500 across the country, for their diversity and inclusion initiatives and procurement for supplier diversity as well. And I'm excited to be here and looking forward to contributing any way I can.
Thank you.
I'm also excited to be here. My name is Kim Jones. I work for Community Collaboration of Delaware. We have offices at 621 Delaware Street, which is the Armory building where Newcastle Insurance is. I'm a substance abuse professional. I operate 5 sober living homes, one of which is in historic Newcastle. So challenging to point it out to me. We definitely have a very strict good neighbor policy, so we hope that that's enforced at all times. So if ever there are concerns with that, please pull me aside so we can talk about it. I'm also the president of the board of the Delaware Association for Addiction Professionals. I'm on a harm reduction committee through the state of Delaware, as well as the Lieutenant Governor's Behavioral Health Consortium and several committees there. I've been working in this field since 2014 and really have a vested interest in the citizens of Newcastle and making sure that they have the right services and the right connections available to them to address not just any substance use issues and prevention issues, but any social determinants of health issues as well.
My name's Andre Jerry. I think I might be the newest to Newcastle. I think I just celebrated 3 years in Newcastle this past. I won't be so noble as to say I got here, Brian twisted my arm. I, by way of PA, I was a parole officer for 11 years, in Pennsylvania, Montgomery County. After doing that, I practiced law for a couple of years, and then chasing love, I came to Delaware, where I went to work at Amazon as a contracts manager and then moved up through there, through Amazon's business operations to be senior operations manager and a station leader in Philadelphia. I just resigned from there in June in order to sit for Delaware's bar in July. We'll see if those results go my way in October. And I'm restarting my legal practices at the moment. So that is brief intro on me. I'm here because I've been doing this for so long. I did, while I was a parole officer for adults, I also I moonlighted as a therapeutic support specialist for juvenile delinquents committed by the city of Philadelphia, working with, mental health and substance abuse issues, broken homes, and all manner of, just ills that take place within, communities. So I'm looking forward to be a part of this, not only to immerse myself further in the community, get to know people more, but also to lend a voice, lend my experiences, and just, be of assistance in any way that I can.
Fantastic. I have to say that I've been tracking other agencies that have their boards, and I'm gonna tell you, this is a really, really, really special group. And it would have been nice to go around the corner to finish off with Pastor Lewis, and whoever the poor soul from William Penn is joining us. But thank you all for sharing all that. This is a special group. My name is Rick McCabe. I'm the chief of this police department. I started here April 1st of 1998. I lost track of how many years that is. I know I've crossed the finish line. So, but I'm here now to finish what we started. I was promoted to chief in August of 2018. I was certainly, I talked to Chief Petty quite a bit after I got promoted. He liked to track the new chief down and talk business and talk shop. One unique thing about Chief Petty is, and I just found this out recently. I'm going to be in Boston in October for the IACP conference. Apparently, he never missed an IACP conference. I haven't been to one yet, so that tells you how dedicated he was. So he one of the things he said to me early on was that he said, I think you should get an advisory board together. And I absolutely agreed with him. But 2020 hit and a lot of bad things kind of happened after that. So we definitely lost traction in a lot of areas, and we lost track of a lot of good things we were doing. And I hope to be able to kind of review some of that with you tonight. My goal is to kind of introduce you to the agency and introduce you to what we look like, how we're structured, what our mission statements are, what our visions are, so you can get a feel for who we are. The other part is I want to spend some time talking about legislation that's been enacted over the last few years that we've had a significant role in passing, either by supporting it or in some cases actually suggesting it. So, and I want to do that for a very specific reason. There are some negative messaging out there right now that is really affecting our industry to the point where we can't recruit. And so this all really does kind of play hand in hand with each other. When I get to the end of the legislative part, we're going to talk about the two bills that kind of led to this establishment. But it is the timing of this is pretty remarkable because we are launching a really massive marketing campaign on a statewide level, and we want to be able to talk about the things that we're doing like this. And I think I put in my email that when Chief Petty suggested this, I do feel a little embarrassed that it took so long. And I hope you trust when I say that I didn't need a law to be enacted to do this. We really wanted to do this. So And I know, you know, we talked about it a few times over the past couple of years, but as it turns out, I think because we waited so long, maybe we got such a great group. So I'm excited to sit back and watch you all work. Before we get into what we think this might look like, I just want to talk a little bit about our agency. So we are one of the oldest police departments in the country. We go back, you know, to really the 1700s, 1600s. So what we looked like back then, what was happening back then is really hard for us to tell. We've asked a handful of people over the years to try to do some research. I put a tab on this website to talk about history, and it's very hard to find written history. I will tell you that recently, and I wanted to bring this out tonight, but there have been some folks statewide talking about how they were the first to enact their boards. I have a letter written to Chief Petty from the Police Advisory Board in 1982. So I'm going to share that to you. So we were a little bit in front of some of those folks. Not that we sustained it, but so he had a history with the advisory board. But we don't have a ton to talk about from a history perspective. So most of what we can talk about is where we are now. We have an 18-person complement. We're at 17 right now. We're looking to go to 18. We've got a few folks that have been in so far to test, and we'll get to that when we talk about employment opportunities. And at some point, when I get to the about us, we can structure. We can show you what the structure looks like. But basically, I'm the job as the chief. I have two captains that work for me. One is an administrative captain, and if I listed you her responsibilities, we'd be here all night. And then the same goes for the operations captain. But the admin captain handles all my grants. She handles our detectives. She handles. We have a relationship with CCD, and I'll talk about that in a second. Basically, if I have a great idea, I give it to her. She runs with it. So that's her role. The operations captain runs patrol training. He manages our body worn camera system, our MVR system, vehicle maintenance, stuff like that. So they have, between the two of them, they have in any other agency, I probably described 6 or 7 staff officers. So they do have a lot of work, and I will be as transparent as I talk to you all night long. I will tell you that when I first got promoted, my closest friend of 20 years left to go to another agency, so I had no staff, or he retired and went to a state agency. I had no staff, so when I asked for interest in these staff, I got a group together that were qualified, and I said, don't put in for this job if you don't want to work really, really hard, because we are going to change the direction of this police department, and it's not going to be easy. So they knew what they were getting into, and they've been absolutely fantastic. So beneath the operations captain are 4 shifts of 3 people, 1 patrol sergeant, and then 2 patrol officers. We try to keep at least 2 people on the street at a time. We never want to drop below 2. We like having 3. It's important that we have a supervisor on as often as possible. 21st century policing is not anything like it was when I started. So we don't always have that luxury because of we can only do so much, but we do as much as we can. We have one of the 3 of us staff officers is always on call. We have a staff phone that we have an email address that you can access either through our Facebook page or our website that can dump an email into our staff phone that we can check. We check pretty consistently. So we have some real-time communication that way. If there's an issue on the street and the supervisor's not there, the road guys know, they just call the staff officer. We were having them call the staff phone, and they didn't know who they were calling, so that kind of worked out in our favor. But as a staff, we decided carrying 2 phones around was kind of ridiculous. So we right. Yeah, it is very frustrating. So we identified the on-call staff officer back at the patrol room on the board. So, and then we have 2 detectives that work in full-time detectives. One of them is assigned to the FBI task force, which is it's a wonderful relationship we have with them. I'm going to walk you briefly through the website. I think this may answer a handful of questions, but when we built this website, we contracted with the folks that build this, and I basically we designed this, I had about 3 or 4 other police departments' websites up that I really liked. Millsboro PD was one, University of Delaware was one, Philly PD was one. And I just stole from all of them. So if this looks good, this is 100% thievery. One of the things that we wanted to do, right out of the chute was we felt like there was not a line of communication. People didn't know what we did. They didn't know what we looked like. And we had no social media platform. We didn't have a website. You know, when we would stand before council and present, it would be a stat game. How many arrests we made, how many tickets we wrote, and that's pretty much it. Nobody really understood what we were doing. So we've absolutely changed the way that we communicate. This is one platform. So you'll see in here, there's 2 types of reports. I generate an annual report, obviously at the end of every calendar year. So I'll give you an example of what the last report looks like. So it basically starts out with an intro. I do a summary of what maybe some of the highlights look like. I like to start with what we've done with our community engagement programs. We even through COVID, we managed to maintain relationships with a lot of our community organizers. It didn't look the same, but we still managed to connect. And as I said, this screen's not the best, these pictures aren't the best, but so what we do is we highlight all the community events we've done throughout the year. And this shows that we're not, this kind of addresses an element of policing that's not being talked about. And once again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Like this is happening all up and down the state of Delaware. There are some repeat events that we do every year. We sit at the Markel Trail in the spring, and we do things with the bikes that are coming through. I just talked to OHS last week. They were in here for an audit, and they agreed to help fund that next year. So we maybe give away helmets, things like that. The backpack drive is an annual event that's gotten huge. It started, I was promoted August 1 of 18. I think August 15, we had our very first backpack drive. We had it in here. The Lions Club came in, they cooked hot dogs for us. And, we had a lot of kids come in here. We gave away a lot of stuff. I think it was gone in a couple hours. We've transitioned into, this group here always donates a ton. We now take those backpacks directly to the schools so that they can make sure that they're getting to the kids that need them. And that's huge, because I think we were getting some folks that were not city residents coming in here and just kind of, instead of going to Walmart shopping, they came here. So, so we went that way. We kind of had a little bit better accountability on where the stuff was going. So a lot of the community stuff, and this is another annual event that and this transitioned from a party at the firehouse to now we just identify 4 or 5 families that are really needy. We take donations, and then Tina, my admin captain, she and Latoya or somebody else spend an entire day shopping. That takes weeks for all this, and then literally days. This community room looks like, Winter Wonderland threw up. And she's in here for days wrapping this stuff. And then one night we just go out, either deliver it or we bring them in here. We have a tree. We got Santa. If you know Tim Moore, the best elf known to mankind, he comes in, and it's always a really powerful event. Parents and these are kids, and I go back so far. Some of these guys that are having kids, they were kids when I started here, and they come in and they're they get very emotional. So this is the structure that I talked about. I put this in all of our annual reports. So when you're looking at this, you can see what we're made up of. So I did not add that we recently hired Latoya Justice. She's our police analyst and administrative coordinator. She has been the best thing we've done since we started all this, because it was kind of our missing link. I'll give you an example. I wrote on her calendar that this meeting was today, but I wrote it on the wrong day.
Yeah.
So I learned quickly that that's not my office and not my calendar. So that just goes to show you how efficient she is. I briefly talk about our community policing concept, and we can see this when we move over on the website, but each squad has been assigned an area of the city. So They know that, and the goal is, one, we want folks to know who's in your city, like which squad has it. So if you have something that doesn't require a 911 call, but maybe it's something we can address, we want to create these relationships with those squads. So not to be confused with A Squad Only Patrols Charlottetown, right? This is just for the community engagement part of it. So, and then they're required to submit reports to me monthly what kind of contacts they've made and what issues that they've addressed. So the most common is speed on my street, stop signs on my street, and those get addressed typically on a larger scale through maybe council meetings or council communications. Whether we take enforcement action or we just confirm or deny whether or not there's even an issue. So this has been effective to deal with neighborhood disputes. This has been effective to deal with low-lying issues that just people don't feel like we were paying attention to. But this does require a little bit of effort from the community itself to reach out, right? So it's harder for these guys to get contacts if there's not, if they don't have that engagement. So, but we do encourage when they get a call for service. So if I'm a D Squad officer and I get a call for service in one of the other areas, we do encourage that shift supervisor to reach out to his co-shift and say, hey, here's John Smith, lives in Charlottetown. He's got some issues I think your folks can handle. Then we get into the enforcement data. Very generically, we just, this is all data dumped from state platforms. The one thing that's changed drastically from our days way back when is these numbers are based on numbers entered into a system. It's not what we were taking numbers off of a log, and it wasn't accurate. So when I transitioned from that way to what we're doing now, there was definitely a difference. And so this is a lot more accurate. It's not perfect, but it's a lot more accurate than I think what we used to do. This is data dumped from our CAD, our communications, basically the 911 center. Every time somebody calls 911, that call is logged. So when you hear over the next few years somebody say, I called them and they never responded, we're going to be able to prove that that's probably not accurate, right? So now we encourage people to call 911 or the non-emergency center. We don't want calls here for service because this isn't a dispatch center. Our police admin does not have the ability to dispatch the police officers. We've changed this, and it didn't sit well with a lot of the old folks. They were used to texting the chief and saying, hey, get me a car down. That is inherently dangerous for our officers. These things need to go into the system, and it really hurts the tracking system, right? We want as much data as we can collect so that we can change how we patrol.
Your biggest pain is I always have questions. Sorry,
No,
but does it track the text messages to 911 too? And do you separate that data out?
So what we don't see, what happens is when I say the call to 911, the minute they enter it into the CAD, which is the automatic dispatch center, right? Computer automated dispatch center. Once it's entered into that, so how it gets there, I'm sure 911, and part of what we're going to go through is a trip to 911. That might be a question for that night, but I'm sure they do. But when I say now, if somebody called 911 and it was never entered in the system, I've never experienced that, but could that be a possibility? Maybe. So what we do is we take the non-self-initiated calls out of the database, the self-initiated calls out of this database. So these are actual calls for service. This isn't a car stop or pedestrian stop or anything we've initiated. This is actual calls for service. Then I break it down to the different types of crimes so folks can see what we're dealing with. This has been challenging to build this database, but I think I have the formula down now, so I could just hit go. And so we publish all this. I also
When you say you publish it, what do you mean you publish it? Down for the community?
Yes, this goes on this is my website you're looking at now, right? So you could log on to the website and see this, and then I share it at a city council meeting. And I don't necessarily go into depth unless there's questions about it at the council meeting, but those nights are long enough. So but you certainly have access to it. We get into crash data. Crash data helps support some of the arguments that, you know, that there's a ton of, and there are some aggressive driving things happening, but our crash data is relatively low, compared to the way it used to be. We identify primary contributing factors. So this is always the winner, distracted driving. Substance abuse, alcohol, stuff like that is a second, or is climbing up as we speak, actually. Then we get into, what citizens, what mostly we get complaints about. And you'll see most of them are traffic violations, right? So, and you know, they're not a ton, right? These graphs look like it's a big number, but it's not a ton, but this is typically what most folks complain about. I'm very lucky, and I know this is a public meeting, but I'm very lucky to have access to something that tells me what our response time looks like. Not everybody has this, so. And I've told my colleagues, I'm never gonna share with them how I got this, but this is accurate, but it also includes outliers, and every month I highlight the calls that there's no standard time for a response time, but I've used the 5-minute mark as kind of a cutoff. All of these response times include outliers, and those outliers we discuss in our monthly report. It could be that we were assisting another agency, and when we got there, we just didn't say we were there, so the clock keeps ticking. Or it could be we're going to a call where somebody fled, and we didn't go to that scene, so we drove around the area and we looked for the person that we're looking for, so we didn't stop the clock. So there's a handful of reasons why those numbers get skewed, but I don't remove them from the database because I don't know that, to be fully transparent, I should be altering data that we're publishing. Then I produced a transparency report, and I'm gonna show you that tab as well. This has been a hot topic for the last several years, that we don't communicate with, nobody knows what we look like, nobody knows what we do. We're constantly using force and we're not justified to using it. Well, we've produced this report for years, and we'll get into the accreditation factor. It's a requirement for the accreditation factor, but the reality is our data does not support that narrative. And nationally, the data doesn't support that narrative. So what this is gonna do is hopefully you'll shed light on some issues that we're not addressing the right way for sure, but hopefully we can respond with some data and some facts that say, you know, that narrative might not be accurate. So when we do the breakdown, this is a list of all the reports in the spreadsheet. But what I wanted to show you was, you know, if you compare the calls for service for the amount of force that's used, right? 5,739 times we interacted, at least on paper. That's not to talk about interactions we've had, you know, at a separation day when we're walking through the park, right? 14 uses of force, and of those 14 uses of force, more than half of them are just the display of maybe a taser to compel compliance. So, and this is relatively common in most agencies. So, but we publish that so folks can see what we're looking at along with demographic data. And you can see these numbers are they're pretty low. We do a breakdown, what day of the week, what time of day, that shows us some trends. What type of incident that led to the force, what force was used. So you'll see right here, display and display. And then there's an employment and deployment, right? The deployment is a display. We are great at using the English language. So you can see how high those numbers are where we're just pointing. This may be alarming when you see it at first, but we're trained if we were to stop a car that's stolen or we know that the car was involved in a felony, not to walk up to it. We stand back behind our door, we draw our firearm and point it at the car and say, and we order them out. So that's typically where that comes into play. Then we highlight the enforcement data in graph. I stole this from the University of Delaware. And then we compare it to our population, right? Our demographics and population. This is the greater 720. Most of the folks that we interact with aren't necessarily city residents. So we've included the the entire area. This is kind of a picture of where we're drawing our demographic from. I think it was University of Delaware helped me do this. Then I published our internal affairs summary, right? So we talk about how many times we've had to discipline officers. We share the summary, how many citizens filed a complaint, and what happened with it. So, an example here, this year, we had 3 citizens file complaints that affected 4 sworn employees. 2 were unfounded, 2 were exonerated. And then you'll notice here, agency initiated. Now, typically, this number is always higher than this number, which tells the story that we do police ourselves. Most people, and next year's report's gonna be a little bit different. This number's gonna be a little bit higher, and it's all gonna be from agency initiated discipline. So when a supervisor recognizes that somebody made a mistake, they address it. They take corrective action, but it leads to a documented form of discipline. So again, this is a hot topic because we're not sitting on information. We're not pretending like we don't have, that we're not human, that we don't have issues. And then we do the breakdown here. So in this case, you've seen, we suspended somebody, we've had a reprimand. So, and typically, when an agency initiates the discipline, it's going to be sustained, right? In the cases where citizens file these complaints, many of these cases are exonerated through the watching body worn camera video. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we do a quick summary. So I show this to kind of illustrate that we're doing everything we can to make sure people know what we look like and what we do. And this is just one way. How do I get out of here? So, there we go. So, and then the monthly reports I give the council, and I won't bore you. I guess August isn't up, but it's a very, very abbreviated version of what you just saw. So these are our monthly report, and if you're interested in looking at them, jump on the website. If you have questions about what it looks like or what it's telling you, I'd be glad to share it with you. We do track on the monthly reports quality of life calls. That's helpful to identify if we start to see trends of neighborhoods where, there's a bunch of kids that are acting up that's causing issues or whatever it is that we can fix that way. This is not the way I wanted it to go. There we go. We've talked about the community outreach stuff in the annual report, so we also have a separate tab for that. These are some outdated pictures. So briefly, employment opportunities. You probably saw at the top there's a banner that says now hiring or accepting applications. We've got some work to do to clean that up, and I can talk briefly later about the recruitment initiative. But if you're interested in this job, you come to this website, click on this tab. There is no reason why you're going to get every answer to every question you have. It explains the testing process. It tells you what you need to be qualified. It walks you through the process right here. What you need to be qualified. And these are all based on standards that exist at the state level. And then the actual application, which you can download and fill it. We're on a state level, we're changing how we do this. So that's the employment opportunity. Oops. Transparency, that's a separate tab that has the same report that you saw in the annual report. So this is where we might be able to clean our website up to open these up, because I want to add a tab that addresses what you all are doing. I want to add a tab that talks about the program we have with CCD. If there's a complaint against, if a citizen has a complaint against one of us, it's easy. If they call, we can entertain it that way. They walk in, we can entertain it that way, or they can go onto this website. As I was explaining earlier, this is the email address that's been established that goes right to the on-call staff officer. So if there's a problem that we can address that night, we will. But this outlines the procedure. It identifies the point of contact. Captain Dempsey is our internal affairs officer. When they fill out a form, which looks like this, they send it in and Captain Dempsey will review it. What I want to highlight here is the fact that I am required to sign this. This is an accreditation standard, so there's no hiding, complaints from me or, I have to know about every complaint that comes in, that where they've decided to fill out a report. Some issues can get mediated in the lobby, right? If somebody comes in angry about a car stop or about a way, somebody talked to them on a call, there are times that issue can get mediated in the lobby. That doesn't necessarily rise to the level of a formal complaint that would get logged. But if it's something that they want to address, then it absolutely gets logged. The other thing we give folks access to in several different platforms is access to the Attorney General's office. So, and when we talk about what steps have been taken to offset police misconduct, we'll address that. But that's a link they can get there, and they can get it in important links. Last thing I want to talk about is accreditation. Again, these pictures are outdated. This was us in 2020. We just got reaccredited last month, so we're going to update that picture and then tell this story. But this accreditation piece is very big. This is a challenging process that all agencies are now required to go through, and it basically shows that we employ best practices through written policy, and then we have to show through proof that we're actually doing what we say we're doing in policy. The initial accreditation for an agency, you're allowed to go back 5 years to find the proof. Once you're accredited, the reaccreditation is time sensitive. So my accreditation dates are from October 1st to September 30th. If I'm supposed to conduct quarterly audits in the evidence room, I can't wait till the end of the accreditation period, start cranking out audits and then put them in the file. I have to show that between October 1 and September 30 that I did quarterly audits. So this is very challenging, and it's again, I'm going to get to this in a second, a very important element to some of the things that we've done recently. So that's us in a nutshell. I know that's a lot to take in. I would encourage you to come in here and we'll take whatever criticism we could take from what this looks like or how to navigate it. But hopefully that gives you enough information on what we look like. Before I move into the legislative part of this, does anybody have any questions? I know I rambled for a while here about our makeup or how anything works. Okay. All right. So that kind of leads us to why we're here tonight, right? So, I brought this up earlier. A lot of the messaging, negative messaging around policing right now is kind of focused on this notion that we are pushing back against quote unquote reform, or quote unquote transparency. And I'm going to share this with you. I was on a listening session years ago, and I'd like to welcome Representative Cook. Do you mind if I do this? He was he led the law enforcement task force committee that kind of sparked all of this. And during those subcommittees, there were a lot of listening sessions that we listened to, and we heard a lot of bad things. We heard a lot of things that probably weren't true too, but we heard a lot of things. And I remember sitting on one call when somebody was banging on us because we weren't transparent, and I was literally adding my report to this, and I copied the link and I went to send it to her, and I chickened out. But anyway, and I should have recognized Councilperson Brian Mattaway. I'm sorry. This was Brian was very instrumental in putting this board together, and then of course our city administrator Antonina. So off to the reason why we're here, and I'm going to ask that you bear with me a second. We have done on a statewide, and I think Representative Cook will tell you this. So from a statewide perspective, we've not been that good at marketing ourselves. We've not been that good at talking about the things we've accomplished. So recently, a handful of us got together and we said we need to create some talking points so that when we're meeting with legislators, when we're meeting with the public, we can share with them what the reality of this industry looks like. So a very well-spoken and long-winded chief drafted a letter. I've highlighted some of the things that I want to touch on, but it may require me looking down to read, so I apologize for that. But there are some important things. And he basically classified this as an open letter to stakeholders interested in professional regulation of law enforcement services, right? I'll get to what that means in a second, but there continues to be considerable discussion regarding the true reality of professional standards in Delaware law enforcement. Critics of the recent work to accomplish sensible reform in policing continue to assert that there have been little improvement to the system and there remains an inherent risk to Delaware communities. That is an absolute message being delivered right now by a handful of folks. They are scaring our own communities into believing that we are the face of everything that's wrong in that community. And then we scream, why aren't you diverse? Then they scream, why aren't you in that neighborhood? So it's a conflict, and we are stuck in the middle of this. To begin, we must acknowledge that the safeguards that have been in place for many years. The Delaware Department of Justice has aggressively prosecuted criminal misconduct whenever the facts would support an indictment. There was a recent op-ed done by somebody from ODS, they're the Public Defender's Office, that talked about an incident involving an officer that assaulted a 15-year-old. What was left out was that officer never put on a uniform again after that incident, never stepped into a police department again after that incident, and is going to go to jail, right? That doesn't happen to anybody else. If there was a fight in the lobby right now between two people and that type of assault took place, nobody's going to jail. He's going to jail. Why that was left out is beyond me, but that does not send a good message. People don't trust us when they read stuff like that. So that op-ed is what led to this letter. Officers kept their, we are required to keep up on our credentials, and in many cases, our certifications are revoked after sustained findings of misconduct. So I had an opportunity today to meet with some folks that are working with Post. That's the new, we'll talk about that in a second, the new police officers to standardization training. I saw their website. I got a front row seat at their website. It's not live yet. It is fantastic. And you're going to be able to click on a link and see whoever's been decertified. And they're going to touch the NDI. So to the national database, right? So we are building platforms right now that loopholes that, quite frankly, aren't as bad as they're being described are going to be closed. As we continue to advance in the 21st century, rapid and unfiltered images of human beings in conflict or video of everyday people making horrible momentary decisions find their way into our smartphones, and then they become viral. One of the biggest problems that we have is we're fighting against the same viral videos over and over and over again. On a very, very small scale, you saw that one year I had close to 6,000 calls for service with 14 force reports, right? 7 of which were just a display of a taser. So 7 out of 6,000 calls for service led to that. But yet you're going to see videos of and we're not right in some of these. We've made bad decisions in some of these videos for sure, but some are the difference of opinion and whether or not force should have been used. So, and I bring this up to say that's one of 2 elements that lead to these negative messaging. And when I talk about what legislation has been drafted over the last several years, I think it might be kind of shocking to hear where we've come. But those are the triggering things. Those are and listen, they trigger me too when I see it. When I see misconduct, it's very upsetting. When I see any use of force, it's unsettling. I've been doing this my whole life, and it is still unsettling. Force is never, ever, ever pretty. It's never in the movies. Always makes it look good. You always get shot in the shoulder, get back up. It's just not the reality. And unfortunately, TV, social media, news outlets have really tainted our image to the point where the trust factor has dropped. So that leads to I want to summarize very briefly some of the things that have been accomplished over the last 4 or 5 years. I don't have dates on this. I have General Assembly. So we're going to start with the 147th General Assembly. And during that time frame, it was recognized that discipline-related issues were not being addressed effectively in smaller agencies. We're not quite there. I have somebody trained in IA, and we do our own IAs. But there were agencies that didn't have the training. And what we were recognizing was that people were not being held accountable because the agency wasn't trained or didn't have the platform to do an investigation and then effectively discipline that officer. So this bill, in this General Assembly, they passed a bill that allowed smaller agencies to reach out to other agencies to do those investigations. So on top of Captain Dempsey doing our own, he's done probably 10 from other agencies over the last 4 or 5 years. So so that was a significant bill, and that we found has eliminated a lot of the issues that were kind of getting through the loophole. And it was an amendment to the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. So does that ring a bell, the over? Does that term floated around for years, and we just changed it. Leober has been misrepresented through a couple different platforms as this way for us to kind of stay secret and not be transparent. What has never been explained is why Leober was created. So I go far enough back, not pre-Leober, but certainly I dealt with chiefs that didn't get that message. Leober was designed to create a due process for police officers. So I'll give you this scenario. When I was a very young officer downstate, when I started down there, I was on a shift, and I was in the middle of a pretty hectic call, and I got back to the station with a prisoner, and my wife called crying, and I said, how many times have I told you not to listen to the scanner? She said, my brother just killed himself. So I stopped, somebody came in, took my prisoner, I got in my car, drove home, then we drove all the way to Western PA, had no idea when I was coming back. Forgot what I would, I'm sure I had responsibilities, but we handled our business. The agency was fantastic for me. But I came back, went to work, the next day I went to work, and I missed a trial that day. I totally forgot I had a trial. So, and that's something you could get disciplined for. So weeks later, I come into work, I'm supposed to work 8 to 4. I see red ink all over the schedule, and it says 8 to 12. You're working 8 to 12, you're leaving at 12. I was suspended for 4 hours. I was suspended for missing that trial. So I had no due process. I had no explanation. I had nothing. And I'm telling you, if I had taken that to a trial in today's day, there's no way anybody would have upheld that. So that's why Leober was created. On top of that memo that says that you've been suspended for 4 hours is an internal document. It's not a secret document. It's an internal document, no different than anybody else's industry. But you're going to hear the ODS folks yelling and screaming that we're keeping it secret. But it's not a secret. It's an internal document. And we, as we'll talk about here in a second, as an industry have not only agreed, but suggested that we change the language to public face serious misconduct. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So again, these are all things that don't get talked about. And again, it's important to understand where Leober came from. And you'll hear this misrepresented over and over and over again. In the 149th General Assembly, this is probably one of the most significant things that they've done, besides 205 and 206, which we'll talk about, is they created DPAC, the Delaware Police Accreditation Commission. It's an independent agency that they're the ones that come in and do our review. They make sure that we're in compliance, we're best practices, our standards meet best practice standards, sometimes on the federal level. The discussion we had today was we're taking a look at maybe trying to get federally accredited in some areas. So so when that's and the makeup of that board is remarkable. It includes members of the General Assembly. So this notion that there's no input from the community is just absolutely inaccurate. And if you're not represented properly, it's because some of the members of the General Assembly aren't even going to these committee hearings. So they're missing an opportunity to sit at the table to help stand up best practices for a police department, and then they're standing in front of a microphone saying, we're not doing it right. And that is absolutely reckless. So then that's where you folks come in, right? You're going to absolutely hold me accountable, but I'm hoping you're going to hold some of those folks accountable as well. So DPAC is a very powerful tool, and now it's gotten even better because we're required to do it. All agencies have to have this accreditation, and I explained how challenging that is. There was another bill, SB 169, which enhanced penalties for police NCOs who sexually assault persons in their custody. I mean, that needs no further explanation there, right? And we certainly supported that. We already established an accreditation standard. We agreed 2020 to add this to our policies. But we codified, or the General Assembly codified with SB 45. No, I'm sorry. It's House Bill 350, the ban chokeholds. So at some point, we're gonna put our policies up here. And certainly as a group, you're gonna get access to our policies so you can see them. Our response to resistance policy prohibits the use of chokeholds unless deadly force is been authorized, right, or justified. And that's also a federal requirement. So we had already done that, but House Bill 350 codified it, and we certainly supported that. Senate Bill 44 and 45 created civil remedies for underage consumption of alcohol and marijuana. Again, bills we supported. And actually, I'm working now with the president of the FOP with a representative who wants to take a look at the juvenile citation program. So we are looking to educate our agencies a little bit better, start using that a little bit more. Some of the data that's come back doesn't appear that we're using it enough. And there's certainly some discrepancies there. The idea is divert the kids away from the criminal justice system and into some form of civil remediation, right? And we're working with the legislators to do that as well. 151st, House Bill 195. It's one of the biggest projects I think we've ever taken on, and that's mandating body-worn cameras. So again, in full transparency with my bosses here, I will tell you that I supported that, but we already had body-worn cameras. So part of this was fiscally funded. There's a fiscal note. We're not taking that money because I had $100,000 worth of equipment that was not part, like, you have to go with a certain vendor to get this. And I already had a relationship with the vendor. And I didn't think it was responsible to just throw it all out so I could get a handful of free body-worn cameras. So we have a great system here. I think if you're tracking us, you know that we now have links through this system that if you've got Ring door camera footage, and you want to share of it, you can tie into the link and it'll upload right to our repository. So, but significant bill that we supported as a law enforcement industry. And you know, it's done a lot. And I think I told you before, we clear many complaints about our officers just by watching the camera, and we'll tell them. But I can tell you, I go so far back. We used to plug in the VHS, and I had one of our officers that used to work here. He ended up becoming the chief of Capitol. Somebody complained about him and said that he you know, MF'd them or whatever. So I pulled the VHS out of the trunk of his car. I looked at it and I said, "Why don't you come on in and tell me what you saw?" And I pushed play. And I said, "You stop me when you hear when he calls you an MFer." This guy could not have been any more polite. And he sat and watched it, and then the tape ended. He got up, turned around, and walked out. So it's been effective. That's important to know when we start talking about 205 and 206. It is not unheard of for somebody to walk in here and make an allegation like that. So anyway, yeah, that was a big deal. House Bill 243, I guess we supported this. It restricted the use of publication of juvenile mugshots unless the crimes in question is violent or the offenders are a threat to society. So these are really reformative reformative things. Joint Resolution 4 brought published police integrity reports for public review and created a comprehensive list of all decertified officers in Delaware to ensure that submission to the national database. So that's what we talked about earlier. We supported that. We all participated in that. I think that was part of a task force recommendation that came out of that. There's a little bit of confusion as to who's housing what right now. CJC's housing some, Post housing some, but it's out there, and at some point we're gonna make sure it's gonna look good. It's gonna be easy to access this for anybody. Senate Bill 147 created an objective use of force standard. So in short, force has to be objectively reasonable to be lawful. So that means objectively, that the key word in that sentence was objective as opposed to subjective. Well, I thought that pen was absolutely a bazooka. That's not objective, right? So now the force is scrutinized a little bit more, right? We certainly don't want to put our folks in danger, and we know that we're making split second decisions. But to suggest that that pen looks like a bazooka is that's not gonna hold the water. So, and that was a significant piece of legislation. Senate Bill 148 empowered the DOJ's, we call them decrypt, civil rights and public trust. So that was the link that I sent you earlier when I said, you know, they are one of the first safeguards in monitoring our conduct. This group is specifically designed for that. So if there's a complaint against an officer that leads to maybe a criminal possibility, decrypt would investigate it. They also investigate any use of force that leads to serious physical injury or death. So again, it's another level of oversight. So those were the main bills that led up to the last couple of years. A few years ago, we were met with some legislation that basically wanted to repeal Leover, just take it away, take no more due process, and then create an oversight that had the ability to overturn decisions, have input into discipline, have hiring and firing of officers. So obviously we weren't comfortable with that. We talk about this all the time. 3 teachers were arrested over the summer for sexually assaulting kids. Not all over the news, but we certainly weren't asking to be part of a board that would hire and fire teachers, right? We trust the process. So I bring that up to say that we wanted this. We've always wanted this line of communication. And we've always felt that we could be more transparent. The worst thing that I had to go through was when I'm telling a resident that, yes, our officer was investigated. Yes, we took your complaint. He was investigated, but they were not sustained. And that's all I could say. Or they were sustained, and that's all I could say. So we agreed that we changed language to say, let me tell them a little bit more. If I sustained it, let me at least tell them. Because they'll ask, well, what did you do with them? I can't tell you that. Well, now I can. I can tell you that it's within the parameters of our code of conduct, and I'll show you what those parameters are. You know, it's a group 4 offense, anywhere from 40 to 120 hours up to dismissal. So somewhere in that range, he got that, or she got that, right? So, and it makes people a little more comfortable that, okay, that you are doing a few things. If it's not sustained, I can say, your witness came in here and said, that didn't happen. Or your witness came in here and lied. And then they're like, oh, okay. So, it's helpful to be able to do that. So part of what we did with 205 was add that language. So we changed the name from the Leover to the Police Officers Due Process, Accountability, and Transparency. So we used the language accountability and transparency so that we could start from the beginning when you read this to say, yes, we're okay. We're okay with accountability and we're okay with transparency. It's become actually a punchline with some of the activists and with ODS. It's a punchline for them. Unfortunately, again, they're misrepresenting how powerful the language in this bill is. So it replaced Leover, and its purpose was to address a common labor problem related to the inconsistency in discipline. One of the first things we agreed to do was, and we always joke about this, we referenced California law to help get to get some of this language. But we identified 5 areas that we feel we should be public facing as an agency, as an industry. Incidents involve any law enforcement officer's discharge of a weapon. We disclose that after the investigation's over. Force that leads to serious physical injury or death. Neither of these situations require a complaint. They are always reviewed and reports forwarded to each case to the commission, right? So sexual assault as defined by the law against any person while the officer is on duty. A sustained finding of domestic violence by a law enforcement officer, and then professional dishonesty. None of these situations require a cooperating victim or an official complaint. They can be addressed if detected by other means. So I had a case where an officer was stealing overtime from me. And when I found out, I tried to get him arrested, but so much time had passed. But this is something that I told somebody I'd love to fly a banner over the city with his picture on it, say, this guy stole from me. But I couldn't disclose that. And it was so awkward for me my own agency didn't know why he was being disciplined, and it caused friction. Why are you picking on him? Why are you doing this? And I wanted to be able to say, this is why. So I can now, I can public face this, but here's the key. This is after a finding, a sustained finding. Okay, that's one of two arguments that is being made right now. ODS is arguing that we should they want access to every complaint ever made against an officer, whether it was sustained or not, because that will show a pattern of conduct that will show that we're not doing it right. The level of insanity behind that proposal is, first of all, that to trust them with any information like that it's just not gonna happen. But the goal there is to get as much information as they can so that when I'm on the stand, they can cross-examine me and say, isn't it true you were late for work 6 times in 2012? Isn't it true that you missed a trial, right? I arrested somebody for a robbery on Ferry Cutoff many years ago. He put a knife to the guy's throat. Victim walks to the teller, takes out $100, five $20 bills. The suspect puts a knife to his throat, takes the money, runs, drops the 20, and then gets in his car, takes off. I find him, I chase him all the way up Route 9. He gets out of the car, I tackle him, and four $20 bills comes out of one hand and the knife out of the other hand. I just couldn't have been any more clear, right? So I arrest him. There was a missing person in the car, so I called the detectives to kind of clean this up, and they came in. So I didn't actually make the arrest. That's key. Day of the trial, I'm getting ready to testify. He said, we're gonna have a quick suppression hearing, go down and have lunch. We're gonna do trial after lunch. I go downstairs, I start to eat. The AG says, get up here now. So I come up, he says, did you take him behind a warehouse and beat him? And I said, what? And he said, don't tell me what, yes or no. I was like, no, I didn't beat him. He said, well, he's in there saying you took him behind a warehouse and beat a confession out of him. So I said, I didn't even transport him. So as we had video that supported that I didn't transport him. He lied. They can use that. Isn't it true that you were accused of beating a confession out of somebody? Because it would have been documented. Had that been a formal complaint and it got documented, they want access to that to show a pattern of conduct, to say that, and we know 12 people in a box, there's gonna be one in there be like, there's a possibility. So this is not about transparency. This is not about public trust. This is about winning trials. That's what these arguments are all about. This is about being more effective as a defense attorney. So had I taken him behind the warehouse and beat him up, I would have done it on a camera. Back then and if I turned the camera off, I'm not looking real good. So we've, this law 205 now requires that we public face all this stuff if it's sustained. So those are the big issues with 205. We also kind of closed a few loopholes. We extended dates. You had that hearing scheduled in 30 days. If it wasn't, you're technically in violation. We did codify some of the things that made people comfortable to close those loopholes. But the reality is very few cases were flushed because of a technicality. They would end up losing in an appeal, but it just made everybody more comfortable. And I know this has been a long day. I'm sorry. You guys are all right. Do we need to take a breather? So, all right. Is that Phil that said yes? The last thing we'll talk about is 206, which is how we got here. POST is the Police Officer Standards and Training Commission, and POST has replaced the Council on Police Training. So COPT used to be under DSP's reign. The state police offered to untether, in the interest of transparency, create their own commission, and then stand this up. The makeup of POST is more non-sworn than sworn. They have very significant input on the decisions that are getting made down there. So and then we created the PAC, and that's how we got to where we got today. This commission the wording is so POST has a very specific makeup. We are supposed to try to mirror that makeup basically, and we have. So we have somebody that's been affected by the criminal justice system. We have a religious leader. So those are the two big components that we wanted to get in here. So, and there are no sworn officers on this. I'm not on this commission. I'm just, this will be the last time I run my mouth. So, this will be yours after tonight. But so we've mirrored that. So that's how we got to this part with 206. And I can tell you, I was very, very honored to work with some of our representatives who sponsored this. Mimi Minor Brown, Kendra Johnson, Representative Cook was very helpful in all of this. Darius Brown, he primed it in the Senate. So all very, very receptive. The other part of this is we shopped this around. Every time we met with somebody else, they had input and they added or deleted. And it was very effective until the very end when ODS was in the room with us. Then it became an all-out war. But this was effective when we met with people that really, really, really wanted to impact the industry. So you are a part of like something incredibly reformative. We are the only state in the nation. Yeah, we're the only state in the nation that requires accreditation, right? So this piece, these two pieces of legislation are absolutely they're reformative, and they're not getting any of the good press that they deserve. We're going to change that. Next couple of months, we are absolutely going to change how we're delivering this message. There's a fight up the road here with a neighboring accountability board that wants to. If somebody walk in here and complain about one of our officers, they want that information and they want a public face before we even investigate it. So that hopefully over time that gets fixed, because after they get sued and they change the name of the board to whoever they just, public faced, that should stop. But I say that to say, if there are things that if this being part of this commission, you interact with folks from other committees, or you get a chance to do some training with people, and you start to hear things that you're worried that maybe we're doing something wrong here or something you don't like, I will answer your call no matter when, no matter what. So I know that was a lot. I do feel like it was important to kind of lay the foundation as to how we got to where we got. So really the next step now is, does anybody have any questions about all of that I just dropped on you?
I don't know if it's a question so much as a comment. First off, thank you for going over the detail and the history of it. And pardon my ignorance to the extent that it exists, but what level of social media presence does the police department have? I feel like, at least with respect to some of the concerns, one of the things I learned after leaving government work, public interest work, and going in the private sector is, what corporate media does is they celebrate successes loudly. And so for things that the department does right, I think that it would be beneficial to have a very public, representation of that. And I don't know if that means having a very robust social media platform where you're able to celebrate, whether it's the photos or the interactions. I mean, just as much as TikTok or YouTube might put a police officer on blast for, a traffic stop, I've also seen those ones where you see the police officer out there throwing a football with the kids, or, dancing and doing the rest of it. And I think that old adage where, a lie will be halfway around the world by the time the truth gets its boots on is what you see, too often, with respect to this profession. And I know it from being in it.
Yeah, I have to
More
write
so
that down.
comment than it is a question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I have to write that down. I love that analogy. We have a Facebook page. I don't know if I have Facebook on this computer, but we do have, and we're very active with it. So I don't know every day, but we are active. And anytime, we do a community event, I think we were down there today with the ship. There's some good pictures there. So we're there. We have a Twitter account, but I don't think we've used it. Some of our feeds got lost, and TikTok can't come anywhere near this building, so.
TikTok's got its own issues.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you, and I appreciate that, and hopefully that those are some things that this, commission can help us with too, when you see stuff like that.
I follow you guys on Facebook, and it's every couple of days you have something out there.
Good to hear, good to hear.
On one of the, when you were talking about some of these, the legislation, is there anything that's in there for, that has anything to do with bullying? From, in schools and what the, or our local schools and what the police officers do in helping, helping the, I guess, control that or not control, but, look into it and, help the students and the kids know that, the ones that are being bullied are safe and things like that. Is it legislation that would have that is part of that?
So I don't know of any legislation that addresses bullying, but I mean, there would be a crime associated with it. Maybe typically harassment, in some cases, maybe some kind of a assault or offensive touch, but on that note, we are working with CCD to try to get programs where we're gonna get into these schools. So under a different premise, we're looking at different platforms to kind of, you're familiar with the DARE program, something that's kind of replaced the DARE program. David Salter and I are gonna go into a school, or we're gonna start it kind of, I think it's every Thursday for 11 weeks. We're gonna hour and a half or so with kids to talk about, substance abuse and stuff like that. The more interaction we get in the schools, the better we can address stuff like that. We did, and we have to start this up again, but we did have a program called the Citizenship Award, where we would go into the elementary school and the teacher would recognize a kid in each grade that did something, something good, something worthy of a citizenship award, and we'd recognize them, and they would talk about what it is that they did. So look, things like that may help offset that, but I'm not familiar with any laws that specifically address bullying.
Around training, what specifically is there any mentioning around necessarily how to work with different ethnicities or cultural differences that may not traditionally be looked at in the training portion,
Training for us or for your?
just overall?
So we have policies on implicit bias. We have training on, like my day was cultural diversity. It's kind of grown into implicit bias, where you recognize that there is an implicit bias in human nature and why it exists and what kind of effect it may have on decision making. So we're all required to have that training. It's very powerful. I think it's 8 hours too. And they cover a lot of things over history that, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And doesn't some of your crisis intervention training include looking at some of those things too? Some of the like beyond the psychosocial factors that somebody might be in crisis. And so you're looking at the cultural piece of it too, and how to address individuals in crisis from that perspective.
Yeah, so slowly but surely, that's 40 hours of training. And it's a huge commitment, but slowly but surely, we're getting our folks into that. And that is absolutely covered. So, recognizing, elements of mental health illness or emotional delays, stuff like that. Yeah. I think all of our frontline supervisors have it. So 70 right now, yeah. 2. Yeah, we're not diverse. We're not very diverse. That's an issue. But one of them's the most powerful person in this building, I can tell you that. Yes. So speaking of training, and as you review the bylaws, a couple of things we should talk about are, the law requires that the commission receive 20 hours of training. We could do that a handful of ways. Ride-alongs are a great way to kick it off. We're building a citizen police academy platform, but we have enough right now that we can get started. So I think at the next meeting, we can outline what that might look like. And in the absence of an agenda, that the commission you know, any matters that may hit this commission, we can replace that agenda with training to knock that out. We have a year to make sure everybody has it. You know, some of them will be, we're gonna have a class in force. It's a 2-hour class on force, 2-hour class on hiring, train, stuff like that. Take a trip to the 911 center. You know, we're gonna do a tour of the building that kind of talks about the accreditation piece. So we'll be able to, we've got a handful of different ways to knock that out.
And is this continuing education, from year to year, the 20 hours, or is it just?
No, 20 hours just out of the chute. That the purpose is really to just to try to get an insight as to what it looks like from our side. And 20 hours is you know, not gonna do a whole lot, but it at least kind of, it does, the ride-alongs typically have some impact on folks. And again, to kind of to harp on the importance of like why we got to where we got. There's that same accountability board that I was telling you about is saying that we're not gonna be trained by you, we're not gonna be indoctrinated by you, is their argument. So, you know, we definitely, when we bump into those folks, we wanna, you know, be careful. I don't know how long that's gonna last. Right now, it's being supported because it's not being addressed properly, but it will be, I think, eventually. So I think I sent waivers to everybody via email. So for the ride along, if you wanna fill them out, send them in, and that we'll sit on them, and then, you know, at your leisure, at your convenience, everybody here knows that there's a possibility you might show up, ring the doorbell and say, you know, I'd like to ride along. So I think when we communicated through email, so one thing I think I touched on this, but, so for example, as we take our bylaws, if you've got some input, you wanna send it back to me, I would strongly encourage that you send it to me directly, and avoid emailing the whole group, so that we're not, putting ourselves at risk of any kind of FOIA violation. We inadvertently create some quorum and then have communication and be in violation of that. So I will take, you know, welcome anything directly. And then if we need to address something as a group, we can call for a meeting, and take it from there. I am eternally grateful for Consuela for agreeing to chair. At some point, once the commission's whole, we probably want to pick a vice chair. And you'll see in the bylaws, you'll have the opportunity to create subcommittees if you'd like, to address issues. You know, there's guidelines and term limits, you know, things like that are addressed in here. Any issues or concerns with any of the language in there, I'd be glad to talk it through with you. Again, as I've done for the last 4 years, I stole this from a handful of other agencies, so, not the one I was talking about earlier, but a couple of good ones. Dover PD had a great advisory board before this law was passed. They had to make some adjustments to make it within the law, but they were so effective. That their community relations just, it got so much better because the board saw what was happening from, they were able to communicate community issues to the police department that weren't getting communicated the right way, but they were able to do the same thing. They were able to go back to community meetings and say, whoa, wait a minute now. They did do that right, or they are doing things differently, and it's been effective. So I don't necessarily think we have that issue here in the city. There are some folks that inherently are not thrilled with how we do our job, and there's gonna be times that we do something stupid. But I don't know that it's quite to the extent of some other places, so. Does anybody have anything else?
As far as, I guess we will decide, on how often we meet, whether it's monthly or quarterly, or I don't know what the requirement by the law is for us to meet.
Yeah.
By the law, like,
Yeah.
by the law is quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would recommend monthly for now, so that we can get the training out of the way. So, and then there is an as-is clause, as needed clause. So, you know, if something develops that we think that the group should get together and address, we go that route. if it leads to, a recommendation, that you feel that you need to make a recommendation on a policy change or consult, to your point, training, with the commission agrees to it, draft the recommendation, and then, the chairperson signs off of it and sends it to me, and we take a look at it.
I would try that we do it all together, or is it based off of everyone's schedule?
There's nothing that requires that it's all together, so I think, from a logistical standpoint, if we were able to meet and use this meeting schedule to do this, that would be probably good, but, there are definitely certain parts of the training that we want you all to be exposed to, because, the force part is, that may be an issue someday where somebody, makes a complaint about a force issue, and if you have some background on how we're trained and why we make the decision we make, it may have some impact on your, on how you analyze it. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. First, I wanna, being in this building, but not, let everybody know, how much, respect and admire, Chief Petty. I never had the opportunity to meet him, and I don't use this word lightly, because growing up, my dad was always my hero, someone that I wanted to be like, but, Chief Petty is definitely my local Newcastle hero. Secondly, I want to thank the people on the committee for raising their hand to say yes to helping and building community. I would like to thank the chief for his leadership in putting this to the forefront. I would like to thank Representative Cook for his leadership in Dover. I want you all to know that you are now deputized as agents for the city of Newcastle, and please work the communities, please, provide feedback to the chief, bring it back to you all, share it amongst yourselves, but also, I want you to know you have a friend and advocate on council. I can speak for myself, but I believe my colleagues would agree. The city administrator, Tintilla, was here, and we want you to know we want to work with you all as well. I want to encourage you all to think outside of the box and come up with new ideas to make our community better. And then finally, I just want to share some good news. I know there were some references to it, but we are all here because we want to make community better and we want a better life for our children. And we have recently established a partnership with the police and community collaboration in Delaware to offer a free substance abuse resistance program for children who live in our city. So if you know anyone in middle school that could benefit from this, I think they all could. Please share that news and make the appropriate contact. Yes, middle school.
Is that the same program you were talking about with Salter at the library?
Yes.
Yeah. It goes in the paper, the big
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered a lot tonight, so I'm sorry if I was drowning in information, but hopefully it was enough to get you started. So I would say at the next meeting, show's yours. You do what you have to do, and then if you think you're ready for public comments, it's up to you. If you think you still need to build, it's entirely up to you. I think to have a solid platform before you start taking comments isn't a horrible idea. I think we have in there the rules, the 3-minute rule and all that. I know if it's the folks that attend city council meetings, they're generally very respectful to the 3-minute rule. So, but I'll leave that up to you folks, how you want to run this. If you think if this looks good and you're ready to approve the bylaws, we can break right into training next time. And I'll let you collaborate as a group here. I think we do it now before you break to see what the best day time frame is, and I'll work around your schedule for sure. We address this in the bylaws, but we will make every effort to have a staff officer at these meetings. It'll be me. But if for some reason I can't be here, it'll be another staff officer. And then, from time to time, we may assign a road supervisor to come in here in case there are any issues or questions with, patrol operations. So I'll let you, I'll chat about maybe setting up a schedule, and then once you do that, we'll lock it down. Get added to the city calendar, I would think, right? And,
You want us to send out like maybe a full update somewhere? You don't wanna talk now, it's up to you.
So I would just make 2 points. I guess one would be before voting on, I mean, I personally feel like I could vote on the bylaws, but I would probably abstain just because we do have members missing.
Yeah. And we're missing 3, right?
To
three.
give them an opportunity before we were to act in that regard. And then the next part, I guess, would be to establish like a meeting cadence, but you know, I guess we can do that whenever.
Yeah, I like a little bit more time to review it, and look
Yeah.
over it. If we're doing anything in regards to that. If everyone has an idea of the best days that work for them, we can kind of collaborate, I think, on that and then just send it out to the missing ones, and then maybe make a decision from there, so.
I think there was one that actually, I think it might have been Thomas Lunt that said Thursdays were an issue with him. Does that ring a bell or?
I think Thursday's gonna be official left football.
Yeah.
Wednesdays, starting in October, are hard for me because I'm a volunteer storyteller at the Newcastle Library down Delaware Street for their primetime program, which is like a family literacy program, so.
And I travel on Wednesdays, so my days start at 2:00 in the morning, so I'm not getting
Fun.
good on Wednesdays.
So Mondays or Tuesdays?
Monday's no good because football.
Oh, right. There's that pesky football again. Tuesdays or Tuesdays for everyone?
Yeah, I still want to see this. And he's got a 75-inch TV.
Yeah, why don't we just send out to everybody?
Yeah.
Is there one thing that we may have an issue with this, if we're part of any of the other.
No, you can just respond
Yeah.
to myself.
City
Yeah, the
council
Tuesdays
meetings
with the city
like
council
that,
meetings.
That we're
Yeah.
part of.
And
It
voting,
would be
any
conflict,
voting.
right?
Yeah, we have to make football a back seat to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what TV
No, I was joking about football, right? Like, it doesn't start until 8:00, although today's game, I think, is starting now.
We'll hopefully have it wrapped up. But yeah, why don't we do that? We'll send out
Thursdays,
something.
yeah, Thursday work.
Thursdays?
Thursdays, yeah.
Thursdays, yeah.
And what time's kickoff? All right, well, I mean, if we could move it up, you know, to before 6:30 if you want. Yes, it'll be, well, they'll have the opportunity to create special meetings, and stuff like that, but yes, it'll be open to the same rules that apply, 7-day notice. At some point, when they're comfortable, they'll invite public comment. But right now, we're just kind of getting our feet wet, so, but yes. I
Okay, that's good.
I do want to be able, we're gonna look at maybe moving this to the senior center, so in case this group gets bigger and,
And food.
they have food?
I had a question now, as far as this committee, during the council meetings, are we required to have a representative to give a report? Or is it gonna be pretty much following like your reports that you do? I mean, we don't wanna
Yeah,
repeat what you're doing.
well, this, you'll be independent of what I'm doing for sure, so I think an ordinance was passed that requires, committee reports, right?
Yes, Thank you for the question, Mr. Ramos. We certainly welcome any and all community members to attend city council meeting, and there's a 3-minute public comment session. However, if there's something pertinent that needs to go on the agenda from various different subcommittees, that can be made as an agenda item. And there's an opportunity to present to council and present to the city. Earlier this year, there was an ordinance that was passed to provide some more continuity of communication and collaboration, to request that on an annual basis, all subcommittees report at least annually to council. So there'll be more to come on that front. I'll be or will be happy to share that with you all. Thank you for the question.
Are we gonna have a separate email box that addresses just for the committee, or is it something that goes directly to you?
So I think, we're looking at
We're looking
that.
into
Yeah.
that, down the road, at this opportunity right now, no, down the road, we're hoping to have it.
My instinct is, unless I'm wrong, and this might be a Max question, but we're gonna obviously have a link up there that talks about what the committee looks like. But I don't know that we're gonna share contact information. I would imagine you probably want your personal emails.
Just general.
Oh, general
overall
email, kind of like like you would have,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to communicate with the police department, they just go to the
Like a
website.
Contact at
Yeah.
whatever.com,
Right.
yeah.
And at least,
And then everybody has access to it.
Everyone.
Yeah, okay. I
Exactly.
think we can work that out.
because I know the council members have their own, if somebody wants to, like the Delaware.gov kind of
Mhm.
email, so I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that will be set up. All right.
So are we set on Thursday nights? What do we think, monthly? Do we wanna?
Well, we have the missing 3 people that we need
Yeah,
to pull
we'll
to
send,
see if they're gonna
send
be
out
here.
a general one to the
Sure.
remaining 3, and let's see if we still have a consensus for Thursday.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure, I can ask Thomas Lunt, cause he's one of my vendors in my store, I can just communicate with him and ask him what. If you still wanna get the
Yeah,
email out, I'll just tell him that it's coming.
We wanna do 6 or 6:30?
I get off work at 6.
So that'd be 6:30. So yeah, you get to do something for Thursday at 6:30.
For next month, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that the first month?
Yeah, it's right, because I know the council has it every second Tuesday. So I don't know, so we don't interfere. But we prefer to do it every third Thursday or,
There's a hack meeting every second Thursday. Is it first Thursday or second Thursday? First, second, I think it's second. The second Thursday of every month is a hack. So that would not be a good time to have it.
This is the third.
So it has to be the third.
Third.
The third Thursday.
That would be October 17th.
So there's some language in there on, the governance and, how to run the meetings, and I have a Robert's rules for you, Chairperson Petty. So I guess moving forward, we would probably want to call the meeting to order. You can adjourn it whenever you want. We're lucky enough to have help with minutes. So, which is why we have to time this right, so it's not with other city functions. So, and we're off the roll.
I'm gonna offer just a shameless self-promotion of CCD, but we have, we work in collaboration with the police department and have what we call our CORE program, which stands for Community Outreach, Response and Engagement. And I bring it up because I know that substance use, across the nation, but definitely in Delaware, has resulted in way too many overdose deaths, crimes, all kinds of stuff related to substance use. But if you have loved ones, friends, neighbors, community members that you know are experiencing issues and you would like one of our peer specialists to connect with them, We do have cards that we might have some in the back.
Yep.
That they can get in touch with one of our peer specialists and we'll come to them to have a conversation with them, help them get referred into treatment, get them connected with any kind of services. And it doesn't just have to be to help them with substance use disorder issues either. If they're experiencing food insecurity, if they're unhoused, homeless, have any of these other types of issues that they need help with, we're happy to jump in and do what we can to assist those individuals. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody in this room is aware that we can assist there if there's a need.
Is that road and alcohol? Or is it just
Yes.
drug?
Mhm.
I don't know if this was formally called to a meeting or not, so I don't know.
I would suggest having a motion to
Yeah, I was gonna say,
adjourn.
if no one has anything, the motion to adjourn.
All right.
I want to say one thing real quick. Be used to saying your name out loud when you do that, so she can record who's saying what. I'm just saying,
Oh, that's
when you
right.
do
Yeah,
that,
you
you should
should
say,
that.
I'm speaking,
Yeah.
so you do
That's a
that.
good
I'm
suggestion.
Representative Frank Cook. I was a cop for 30 years. I was vice president of the union. I was on the state executive board. I take this very, very serious. And I manned a task force, had up to 92 people. Those who, that had a chance to, I did it, ask me to do the task force, but I made sure that the voices had a chance to voice their opinions and what they're doing in all fashions of advocacy. That includes women against violence, all that, they're all on my board. And with the working party is the subcommittees. Subcommittees, if you know that, those are the working folks who make things happen. And we're not perfect, but I take this very serious. The nation is looking at what we're doing about the accreditation of 53 police departments we have in this state, 53. Some of them, I think we have too many, just like districts, we have 19 school districts. I think that's too many in this little state. I think that's Frank Cook talk. But the first thing I told him, I know I try to be fair and I like to roll my sleeves up because you not get that, not lucky not Wilmington PD. They got stuff going on every night, every day. Dover PD, that's why he was talking about Chief Johnson. Great programs. This could be a great program. I know it's going to be. I'm not going to say it. It's trying means that may be something wrong. I know it's going to be. I know we talk about dates and times. 3 people missing, that makes a flag go up in my head because this is important. You're dealing with police officers, our communities, and what's going on in the world today. Because these videos that you get out there, you'll see it on Channel 6. They show the part that they want to show. I always tell folks when they call me up, did you see that video? I say to them quick, was it from A to Z? How did the video start? The TV shows the middle, then they don't show the end, what happens. So here, you'll be on that and doing that. And I used to tell them all the time, I'm not here to hurt nobody's feelings. I said, leave your feelings and emotions outside the door, because you're gonna see some stuff and know some stuff, including in training, that goes on. That's what I tell folks. And they understood that in my task force, because this is serious. I take this dead serious. He asked me to come here tonight. I've been to one that was very chaotic. I mean, we had people from Philly coming into the meeting and going crazy, and you saw that, right? And heard about it. But this is your city. This is your community, yours, not mine. I'm just representative for you. You can call me too. And I can take the good and the bad and constructive criticism, because everything ain't gonna be a winner. Everything's not gonna be a winner. And sometimes you get your foot in the door and you can't get it all in. And I just say the respectability has to be there for everybody. But this is serious business. And you have a review boards. And people, you'll see your community get mad at you. But they weren't in the room, didn't see it. Just like if I ask you right now, when's the last time you talked to the guy who works the grill at McDonald's at 12 noon? He's got burns all over him. You can talk about McDonald's all day, but I'm gonna talk to that guy at the grill. What happens at 12 o'clock, doing all the hamburgers, not 2 in the morning and flipping 1. But the work that you do and what's going on and getting the truth. I work on truth and facts. You can tell me the story, but I wanna make sure it's in truth and it's fact. And it's about facts. That's what it's all about, but you all are very, very important. I am elated right now that we have such a board that he has, that you got put together. council and everybody that's here. Very, very important. You all are important, and it's important to me. Because at the end of the day, they're gonna come to me down Lake Hall and say, what happened at Newcastle City? What happened at Blades? What happened down at Camden, Wyoming, Wilmington, DSTA, or DSTA? Yeah, DSTA, state police. All that falls under me a little bit, because I'm the chair of Homeland Security and Public Safety, the chair. So I put this all together with you all, with the chiefs. That's important. You all make this thing run, not me, not him. You all do. I just want y'all to know that. That's all. I just want to make sure you know that. That's how important it is to me. It's important to me that this thing goes on, that it works, and you're being watched. And they don't put in the paper. Maryland asks us, how did we do it? Philly's asking me, how did you do it? How'd you get off? We got 9 big things passed. And the voting was like 40-0, 20-0 on the Senate side, 41, 42-0 on my side. You gotta look at all that. That's Democrats and Republicans. I don't care what you are. That's how we believe in you. You all, not us. We believe in you all. So that's all I wanted to say real quick. I know I'm taking some time. They already adjourned already. And training is the key. When you see this training and get involved with this training, we got people with civilian police academies. And every person I put on that academy called me back a cook. That opened my eyes up a lot of what happened.
Actually, you might be the right person to ask, and I'll try to keep it brief because I know everybody wants to get out of here. I think Mr. Ramos already alluded to this. What training outside of, I know the chief was talking about ride-alongs and some of the other stuff, the use of force training and stuff. What trainings are there, if any, that come forward through that PAC legislation for these?
Well, then, like he was telling you, you gotta get so many hours.
I know it's 20 hours, but in passing that legislation, did you guys have in mind already specific types of trainings that subsequent, did that legislation lead to? You know, hey, we want all of these agencies or all of these PACs to have X, Y, and Z.
No,
Not really. Go ahead.
there was a talk about autonomy, right? So, because it's gonna look different for each jurisdiction. So, they may post. Yeah.
Well, this is PAC, that's the legislation.
Yeah, Post may end up regulating. They may end up doing, if they start to recognize that we're not doing it right, they may end up regulating. But right now, what you can expect is a classic Citizens Police Academy.
Okay.
Yeah, but nothing specific. I think reasonably because of the outcome.
Yeah, that's all right. All right.